Shalom Greek class. Today we're going to look at a vocabulary word we learn in Mounce chapter 13. Polus, meaning many or a great number. And what we see is the basic lexical form is polus for the masculine, singular, and then the feminine is a double lambda, polè. And there's a switch in the number of lambdas, both in the masculine and neuter. Here's our neuter nominative, polou. We have a single lambda in both the nominative case and the accusative case. But other than that, they're all going to be double lambdas. So polus, polè, polou. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple passages of scripture in the Greek which feature this word. So our first one here, and we'll just be reviewing some points of Greek grammar along the way, things we've learned and maybe things that we haven't seen yet in our first year curriculum. Genesis 15:1, meta de tahlemata tauta. So meta, if you remember, that's one of our prepositions. And here, when we have a preposition, we need to attend to the case of the noun that comes after it. And here we have tahremata. Tahremata is either going to be in the neuter plural, in the nominative, or the accusative. But we're not going to have meta followed by a nominative, so it's going to have to be accusative. So we read this as accusative. And so when we have meta plus an accusative, it is a temporal after. So hemata is, you might notice if we haven't learned this word yet, it's a mat stem, like pneuma or onoma. Remember these? Soma. That in the nominative and in the ma, mu alpha, but we know that the stem actually has the tau, which is dropped off in the nominative case. But tahremata, that is things or words, actually. It's like it reflects speech or words. And then tauta, these. Meta, de, and after tahremata tauta, these things. So tauta is our demonstrative pronoun that is agreeing, of course, in case and in gender and number with the noun it's modifying. Tahremata tauta, these things. So after these things, then we have our verb here, eginete. He came, basically, or it was. What was? This is our verb, right? From ginomai, which we haven't learned yet in our first year Greek. But chrema kuriou. This is our subject now. And it means the word of kuriou. What's a kuriou? Of the Lord. So, word of the Lord. Now I can add the, even though it doesn't say tu kuriou, I can still say of the Lord. So, chrema kuriou, the word of the Lord was, so this is he, she, it, came, or was. And then we have another prepositional phrase, pros Abram. Pros Abram. Now, pros with the accusative is to. So the word of the Lord came to Avram. And then we have another mat stem. See this? En horamati. Horama is a vision from a verb horao, to see. En horamati, in a vision. So we'll learn that word a little bit later. Legon, saying. Okay, so that's the beginning of the quote here and to here. The rest of this is a quote. So now this is just setting us up to come to our featured vocab item here, polus. This is what the word of the Lord came to Abraham saying, me phobu, me phobu. That you might see phobe here as like phobia, right? Fear, and that's, you'd be correct. Me phobu. He's telling Avram, fear not, do not be afraid. Me is a negative particle, like u. Fear not, Avram. Ego, I, we know that one. I, something, right? This is a verb. And then su. What is su? We know ego, right? Ego is the nominative singular pronoun, personal pronoun I. And then su is the second person singular in the genitive case. Remember, we have su, right? So, or su is first person, or sorry, second person singular in the nominative. Su, of you, soy, right? To or for you, and then se is you in the accusative. But here we have the genitive. And the verb, huperaspidzo, ego huperaspidzo su. That means I am protecting you. I am shielding you. I am shielding over you. This is based on this word aspis, which is an ancient word for shield. It's actually the origin of our word asp, like describing a snake, and that's thought to be because it can kind of puff up and look like it's a big shield. But I am shielding you. Hamistos su, here's another su, right, in the genitive. Mistos is, as you can see from the definite article, is a second declension masculine noun. Hamistos, it means reward or even wage. In some cases it's wage. The reward of you. So your reward. And then we have our word. Polus is great. Hamistos su polus. And we have the verb actually here. Estai is he, she, it will be. So technically, your reward will be great. And then we have our svodra, which is translating our meod, our Hebrew word meod, meaning very. So hamistos su polus estai. Your reward will be polus, will be great. And why is it polus? Why do we not see, for example, polè, like up at the top of the screen? Why don't we see polè? Why don't we see pollu? Well, because it has to agree with the noun it's modifying. So polus is here in the nominative singular of the masculine gender because mistos, the word it is modifying, is nominative masculine singular. That's why. So that's how we know polus goes to be a descriptor of the word mistos. Okay, I know that there's a lot of things that we haven't learned here in Greek yet. We haven't learned verbs like, huperaspidzo or eginete, right? Or legon, saying, right? Or the imperatives, phobu. These are things we'll learn later. But for now, I just wanted to give you a passage of scripture to think about and chew on with respect to what we do know. Okay, let's look at another one. So with that one in mind, here's a fun verse that I think is a nice connection to our passage that we just read of God's promise to Avram. This is Yeshua in the Sermon on the Mount. He says, Chairete kai agaliaste. And these are imperatives, rejoice and be glad. And then look what he says here. Hoti, we know hoti is that. Hamistos humon. Hamistos humon. So back here we saw with Abraham, we saw hamistos su in the singular. Here we have hamistos humon. I'll zoom in a little more here maybe. Hamistos humon. Y'all's y'all's reward, right? Because humon is second person plural of the genitive, right? Humon, of y'all, y'all's reward. And then it says polus. Why polus? Because, like we saw with Genesis 15, it has to agree with the noun that it's modifying. Your reward is great. Hamistos humon polus en tois uranois. So en, remember our preposition en, takes a what case? A dative. And it means in. It's a good way to translate it. So what's tois uranois? Well, if we remember what is uranos, heaven, this is plural, in the heavens. Bashamayim. It's really capturing what we would say in Hebrew, bashamayim, in the heavens. Okay, let's do, I've got two more, one from Psalms and one from Ezekiel. So here's our verse from Psalm. Now, it says 28 because this is the Septuagint. Now, the Masoretic text, this is Psalm 29. So a little bit difference in numbering there. So if you looked up in your English Bible, Psalm 28, you wouldn't find it. Phone kuriou epiton hudaton. So let's say that together. Phone kuriou epiton hudaton. So phone, that's our nominative singular, right? Sound or voice, kuriou. Well, before we saw rema kuriou, a word of the Lord. This is voice of the Lord or sound of the Lord. But we can just say the voice of the Lord. Epi ton hudaton. Well, epi, that's one of our prepositions. And plus a genitive means upon. When the noun following epi is in the genitive, it means upon. And so there we go. Epi ton hudaton. Here's a nice third declension. We can tell by the definite article. Hopefully you know at least that this is genitive plural with that tone. Hudaton. So this draws on our to hudor. Do you remember what hudor is? It's water. And this is a third declension. So even though it's hudor in the nominative, we have hudatas, etc. We have that tau that jumps in here, hudaton. So this is upon the waters. So phone kuriou epi ton hudaton is the voice of the Lord is upon the waters. And it says here, hateos tes doxes, the God of glory, ebrontesen. We could just translate that, gloss that as has thundered, or he has thundered. The God of glory has thundered. And then we're just going to go to our very last line here. Kurios, here's in the nominative case, the Lord. Epi hudaton. Well, look at this. We have the same thing here. Epi and hudaton. Here we have epi hudaton. The only thing we don't have repeated is the definite article. So there's some poetic variation here. You do not have to have that definite article. Kurios epi hudaton, upon waters. But look at our modifier. Polon. Well, remember we have polus, that's our masculine, double lambda, pole for the feminine, and then polu for the nominative, or for the neuter, I mean, upon the waters, the many. So what do we see with the on here? We see agreement, genitive plural. Then all we need to know, even though we don't really need to know the gender of the word water, if you've done your lexical homework, you remember it's ta, like I wrote above, tahudor, water. So polon, if we were going to parse that fully, we would say this is a genitive plural, and the case is neuter. What else? Genitive plural neuter, and it's modifying huditon. And you could say, if you want what's the lexical form, you could just say polus, like that if you want. You don't have to write all of the three, masculine, feminine, neuter. You can just say polus. So there you go. Kurias, the Lord upon many waters. The great many waters, something like that. Okay, finally here, we're going to go to our last passages from Ezekiel 124. Kai ekwon, again, stuff we haven't learned yet. Ekwon is just a verb, I heard. It's where we get our word acoustics, right? Akuo. Ekwon. And I heard tein phonein. I heard the sound. Here's phone again. Ton pterugon auton. Now, pterugon is from a funny sounding Greek word, pterux, which is, do you remember there was a dinosaur called a pterodactyl, right? Pterux, it's wing, right? So this is a Greek word for wing. I heard the sound of their wings, right? I heard tein phonein, that's the accusative, the sound, and then we have the genitive phrase here, of their wings, of wings of them, right? Okay, we're going to continue on here. I heard the sound of the wings of them. Ento porewestai auta. Now this is a phrase we won't learn for a while because we have what's here. We'll learn this is an infinitive verb. And an infinitive verb can take a definite article and a preposition and be in a prepositional phrase. So ento porewestai auta means in their going, literally. I heard the sound of their wings in their going. Okay, so don't worry about understanding all that. We've still got 2 more quarters of first year Greek to get through, but we can go here. Hos, like or as. Phonein hudatas polou. Phonein hudatas polou. Just as the voice, so we have another accusative, right? Voice or sound. Hudatas, remember we have ta hudor. That's our lexical form. But hudatas is our genitive singular. And so we've already talked about hudor being neuter, so we know polou must be also the genitive singular neuter. So hudatos polou means many waters, many waters. Okay, well now we have an example here, or much water, I guess, because hudatos here is singular, whereas if we looked in like Psalm 28, we have waters in the plural. So you can have many water or much water. The voice of much water might be a way to keep water in the singular in our English translation. Okay, so here what we've done is we've looked at some scriptures and talked about this adjective from chapter 13 of Basics of Biblical Greek. Polus, pole, and polou, meaning much or many or a great number. Shalom.